Afghanistan Project Podcast. I'm Beth Bailey here with my co-host Michael Cook. Today we are welcoming two individuals who were bonded by their service in Afghanistan. Pasoon Khan is a former Afghan interpreter who served alongside U.S. forces during heavy combat between 2008 and 2014 when he entered the U.S. through the Special Immigrant Visa Program. Pasoon became a U.S. citizen in December 2021. He's a married father of four and he works as a security guard. We're also joined by Ryan Engle, a graduate of the United States Naval Academy who spent 6 years in the U.S. Marine Corps as an infantry officer. Ryan now works in veteran long-term care. Ryan was a first lieutenant with the 3rd Battalion, 6th Marines and had been stationed in Marja in Helmand Province for 3 weeks when Pasoon was assigned to be his interpreter. Ryan was among the group of 9 Marines and 1 soldier who submitted personal recommendations for Pasoon to be admitted to the U.S. through the SIV program, which is really a testament to the quality of service that Pasoon provided. Pasoon is joining us tonight to talk not just about his work as an interpreter, which includes surviving a suicide bombing and being witness to Medal of Honor recipient Lance Corporal Kyle Carpenter leaping atop a grenade to save his friend from the blast. But also we wanted to share with viewers the nearly impossible set of circumstances that Pasoon faced after our withdrawal in supporting his family who were stranded in Afghanistan. Ultimately, those circumstances led Pasoon to return to the Taliban's Afghanistan in April of 2022 to try to evacuate his family from the country. Pasoon and Ryan, thank you for being here with us tonight to talk about your stories.
Thank you for having me.
Well, Pasoon, can you start tonight by telling us what motivated you to work as an interpreter during some of the most intense periods of fighting in really volatile parts of southern Afghanistan?
When I was not really ready to work as an interpreter, and that is kind of later like an incident too. I was coming from Jalalabad to Kabul, and there was a roadblock, and I saw there was a U.S. Army convoy was blocking the road, and the truck that we were driving in, we had a pregnant lady that she's supposed to be going to the Kabul hospital, and I walked to one of them, and I asked them, I said, "Hey, sir, you guys are blocking the road, and she needs to get to the hospital." And that time I was not familiar with any military terms for the ID, and all those other stuff. And I was like, "What's going on?" They said that there's a roadside bomb. It's not safe, but I told them that she needs to go to the hospital. So I think there was a staff sergeant in the army, and he's like, "Oh, you speak very good English. Why don't you work with us?" Like, I don't know where it started from. So he gave me his phone number and say, "Call us, and when you come to Kabul, there's a place they call in Phoenix, and you will working for us." So when I come back home and I tell my dad, I say, "Hey, there's an opportunity. Should I work?" He's like, "Yeah, if you can do that, but just make sure that you do not come back. It's going to be not an easy job." So that's where I start joining with them. I thought that there would be, this be a part of history to be a fight for democracy and see some changings in Afghanistan after the long wars that we suffered. So that was I wanted to be something that I can do for my people and the people that they come from nowhere to help us. So, like, let's be in a part of the history.
And how old were you at the time, Pasoon, when you became
I
an interpreter?
was when I started work, I was 18-year-old.
Okay. And do you feel like you really knew what you were getting into? Like, did you realize, how dangerous of a job that was going to be?
No, I had no idea what is going on in the Helmand province because when I came from because before I did work with the other companies or group of foreigners that were not in the army, that were just civilians like USID workers when they come to the town, just helping them out, and then they will pay you, some amount of money that you work with them to help them guide. But in 2009, when I was straight going from civilian and work to with the military, that was a completely different experience. And there was a time when there was the Operation Khanjar going on, and then not even with the army, that I went straight with the infantry marines. So that was very difficult and had no idea what we would be getting into.
Yeah. And prior to that point, had you had any interactions with the Taliban before becoming an interpreter?
No, I did not.
And obviously, you had um, learned your job really well because, Ryan, my next question is for you. And I'd like to, before I ask it, read from the recommendation that you wrote to Chief of Mission in favor of Pasoon's SIV. You said, where firefights and IED explosions occurred daily, Pasoon never wavered in his loyalty to me, my Marines, the Afghan National Army, and the United States cause in Afghanistan. In my time there, I had one linguist killed by enemy fire and two others who quit due to the hostility and poor living conditions in our area. But Pasoon never complained and remained with my unit throughout the entire operation, providing me an incredible resource of linguistic skills, cultural advisement, and loyalty. His courage was on par with his loyalty, as I have personally seen him grab a weapon and take post when our patrol base was under attack, and have seen him act fearlessly in countless enemy engagements, pointing out enemy firing positions and helping my Marines carry casualties off of the battlefield. Additionally, he was of incredible value to me as an advisor, informing me of ANA soldiers I should watch carefully, villagers who were not being entirely truthful, and the state of morale amongst my ANA counterparts. I could not have been nearly as successful a platoon commander without the help of Pasoon Khan. So can you tell me why it was so important? It's kind of in these words, but why was it so important to you that Pasoon qualify for an SIV, Ryan?
Well, first of all, I stand by my statement here years later, certainly. You know, the relationship that I developed with Pasoon and certainly all the Marines that served with us that they developed with Pasoon. I mean, he did more by the age of, again, I think he said 18. I think he was 19 when you joined me and our platoon, Pasoon. I could be wrong. But by 19 for American foreign policy and made more sacrifices for American interests than most Americans do in a lifetime. And that's not a criticism of anyone here stateside. It's just a matter of fact. How many people have been blown up, shot at, or otherwise behalf of American foreign policy interests. And so for me, when knowing that, you know, Pasoon and the services he provided, the Afghan government and thus the United States, and his desire to, you know, live a different life and live a better life, it was important to me that he have the opportunity to come here to the United States.
I want to briefly bring our listeners back to some other points in time after your service with Ryan Pasoon, that some of our listeners are going to be familiar with these scenarios, but they may not know that you were involved with them. So on November 21st, 2010, on Patrol Base Dakota in Marja, you were one of the only witnesses to the act of courage that inspired millions when Lance Corporal Kyle Carpenter leapt on top of that grenade as it was coming towards him on the rooftop where he was watching out for enemy forces, and he leapt atop it to shield his best friend from the blast. What do you remember about that day, Pasoon?
Uh, that is that is the day that I think it will stay with me until I'm alive. And we left. That was around, say, the first day when we tried to establish a PB Dakota, and we dismounted from the PB Beatley. That was around 4:30 p.m. on that time, military time, like around 14:60. We went there, and we went to a village that we had no other units there, and that was the first unit to establish a overwatch position for the other Marines on the area to patrol. When when we went there the first day, you know, it was kind of quiet, and like I was ready for, you know, by the time, because working with the prior unit already, I know most of the area, like which area was good and which area was bad, and most of those area I was familiar with. That's where the thing's going to be coming from. And so the first day when we were there, nobody showed any kind of resistance, but I did saw a lot of locals were leaving the house that were surrounding us. And I come to my staff sergeant and I tell him, I said, sir, you know, things doesn't seem good to me. You know, he's like, why? What happened? So I just don't like this people leaving right now, because whenever you see people start leaving from the area, that means something gonna go wrong. And he's like, no, we'll be okay. You know, we will see what happens. We're ready for it. And say, okay. So day passed, and next day comes in. So we were almost done with digging this, the sands and filling out the sandbags. We did establish a small overwatch over the rooftop just for a couple sandbags around it. There's two Marines were sitting there. It was me, three other ANA, and two Marines that we were still digging to fill out more sandbags. And I saw a grenade just come through, over the roof. I did not know what was that, but until it exploded, then I know, well, that was a bomb. And that's how I saw he jumped in there. And then we saw a couple other grenades that had come through. One of them, I think I sent a picture of that to you. That the one that was really close to me and other Marine that did not explode. Like, we were right in there, but we can say that God has a plane, but it just didn't blew up on us.
Yeah, and how far away?
That must
were
have
you
been an
from,
incredibly
Kyle
frightening
Carpenter, Pasoon?
moment.
Around
Another time you were not as lucky.
7 meters, because we don't have that big houses there, but where he was posted and the PB that we captured, it wasn't the size of the PB Beatley. I would say it was maybe the fourth size of it, like very small compound.
Yeah, and then what happened after the grenades started coming in?
Can you guys?
They
Okay, Michael can edit this out. I can't hear Michael.
We got an RPG that had the other post that was not even built yet, but we put the sandbags there. Nobody was there, and there was a shooting, and some of the Marines, because we were the two of them were on the post, and the rest of them were inside the rooms resting when that happened. And there was a thing, if I'm not mistaken, like 6 or 8 grenades just come like right after each other, like right behind.
Jeez. And I don't know if you remember, how many casualties did you guys take other than Kyle Carpenter?
There was only 2, and that day we took 2 of them. They were very serious.
Yeah, got it. And then, so what happens next? So the fighting calms down, and then what happened?
They casawake them, and next day the same thing again, because they surely want no foreigners to be there in that area where they were operating from.
That whole area was highly kinetic at that time, and those 2 days alone show just what you were facing. It was not even 2 years later when you were on a dismounted patrol in Kajaki with the Marines when a suicide bomber attacked, and you weren't as lucky as you had been in that incident where you witnessed Lance Corporal Carpenter leap on that grenade. Can you tell us about that suicide attack and your own recovery process afterwards?
Yeah, we were in Kajaki, at the base that we were standing. They call him Copa, Pennsylvania, and we went on the patrol that morning. And when we were coming back from the patrol, I had the icon chatter on me, and the patrol sergeant with me was Chambers. We were calling him Buck, but I don't know his first name. When we were coming in there, I tell him, I say, hey, I heard something that coming on the icon chatter that there will be a attack on us. And those were like the usual threats that they were giving to the villagers all the time. We had a couple of letters that they say to stay away from the Americans. If anything happens, that circumstances was going to be on you guys' own. We're not responsible for it. They were putting those letters in the mosque, in the school area too, and also in the bazaar where that happened. They put those letters to the shopkeepers too. that if any Marine comes in, you guys need to stay away. If anything happened, any kind of blast happened, we are not responsible for that, for you guys' injury. And I remember when we come there, so we start talking to the local. There was another unit from that day. I call him 1-1. Lieutenant Ryan is give he will explain better than I do. They were called the advance party, so their lieutenants and some of those officers arrived before like the other Marines arrived on site. So we were kind of showing them the area in our contacts, who was going to be working with them and who they're supposed to be watching for that. So that was their first day on the ground too when that blast happened, like right in the bazaar.
And what do you remember of that blast, or can you remember what happened that day?
No, I did not really remember anything. When I woke up, that was in Kandahar Air Base, and the first thing I asked was for the water, because I was really thirsty, and my mouth and nose were completely smell like gunpowder, and I couldn't see anything, but there was a female there. She was a nurse, maybe, because couldn't remember the face, but the first thing they asked me was what my name was and where I was. So I was not that good at that time, but I tell her that because the 1-6 Marines were calling me Khan instead of my name. And I was like, my name is Khan. They're like, do you know what happened to you? And I was like, no, I don't. So, she say, okay, he remembers things, but, then they give me a little water. And after a few days that I was getting a little bit better and couldn't really understand what was going on with me because I was not able to see anything. And after a month or maybe more than that, when I was able to see a little bit, just a light shining, like I know there's lights in the room. And I asked the nurse, so like, what's going on with me? I cannot see anything. She said, oh, you were in the blast, but we put you in the dark area. If you go out to the sun right now, that might affect your eyes. So we will be like this for a little while. I was like, okay. And then I remember that they were transferring me to the Kabul base. They call him Kia, the Kabul Air Base. I was there in the French hospital for another month or so. But finally, when I got there, there was a clinic. They call him the American clinic. And when that was the time that I was able to see, at least to say who's who. And my father visited there for the first time after, say, 4 or 5 months when that blast happened. And he's like, do you know who I am? I was like, no, not sure, because I couldn't see his face clearly. But then I recognized one of my cousin that he was my classmate with me from the school, then to the English classes and other courses. So I recognized his voice that somebody is visiting from family. So his name is Pasoon. So I tell him, I say, is that you? He's like, yeah, that's me. Then I know that I was somewhere in the safe place. But for a long time, I was still like, did not know where I was.
That must have been incredibly frightening. How long did it take for you to regain your sight and to regain other things? You weren't able to walk after the blast, from my understanding, either. So what was
No,
that? What was the timing of your recovery?
it takes from January to August was a little bit of time that I could start walking a little bit back. My nurse that I was, she was that kind of person nurse. Her name was Dr. Hannah. She used to hold my hand, walk me around in the compound, and also showing me how to use the spoon again. And also, she brought a computer to say, just go ahead and start using your eyes with that, so that way you can get back to. It's like you teaching 1-year-old kid again how to eat and how to walk again, and holding his hand. So that was kind of difficult.
Yes, and you were also, in your time working as an interpreter, shot twice. So you really took quite a lot of damage working with U.S. forces, but you rejoined when you did recover, right? And you began working as an
Yes.
interpreter again.
Yeah, I started working with the National Guards. That was the Georgia National Guards in Kabul at cluster bases.
I don't know that I would have came back if it was me. You're a lot braver than I am.
Yeah, thank you. Well,
But I think we've talked before, Pasoon, and you said it wasn't easy to come back. Like mentally, it was taxing when you came back, right? Can you talk to us about that a little bit?
no, because like when I come back, the thing, I work with the Marines, and then coming back to Army, they're technically, they were nice people, but the way we were talking to the Marines, where we were gossiping with them, we really cannot do it with Army. They were a little bit different than that. And then sitting back in there, going back on the patrols in the cars, I was mostly scared of everything for most of the time, from the cars, from motorbike that are coming to a patrol. So for a long time, I was kind of shocked, like what's going to happen, like walking on the cobble roads there. And unfortunately that put me with the QRF there, with the quick reaction force, when there was another units that were not doing anything. So for some reason they choose to bring me back to the QRF. So anything happened, we were the first responder to respond in Kabul City. Suicide bombers happened, we will go and provided our watch for the Afghan army or any other units. And when coming back in the Kabul, there was a base that called Camp Pinnacle when that car bomb happened there, and I was in the shift that day. So that was one of the difficult day that bringing those dead bodies, injured people from that side into the hospitals. And I was, I remember that how, like how somebody picked up me, like kind of thinking there for a good time, like when you see those people that they are begging for help, like you cannot do anything. There's not a lot to do, but you can only talk to them and give them a hope that, everything is going to be okay. But because personally, I can feel the pain, what they were going through, because I experienced everything on my own. But that was the most difficult time, working in the Kabul back as an interpreter.
That all makes me so glad that people like Ryan and the other 9 individuals recommended you for the SIV program, because you really did work so hard for us, even after going through so much pain yourself. I want to fast forward now to the evacuation of Kabul. You were less than a year away from achieving citizenship when the US withdrawal occurred. And at the time of the evacuation of Kabul, there were 3 senior military personnel, a gunnery sergeant, a major, and a lieutenant colonel, who personally submitted letters recommending that your family be immediately evacuated from Kabul. What happened when your family arrived in the vicinity of Hamid Karzai International Airport?
When that happened, I called a couple of the Marines that I was sitting, when that Kabul evacuation happened, and I saw there's a guy named Charlie. He was holding a child in the Kabul airport, and I was like, oh, I know him from 1-6. He's there. So I start digging into to get some hold of from 1-6, and then I finally got hold of Gunnery Sergeant Buck, and I say, hey, is there anybody at the airport right now? Because I can see Charles and some other Marines there. He's like, what's going on? So because my family's still there, and I need help to get them out. Then I finally hold another sergeant from 2-8. His name was Lewani, and he told me that Doc Moore is at the airport right now. And my family did 2 attempts. And the day that the Kabul bombing was happening, my brother went there. His name is Zubair. When I talked to the unit, they say, tell your brother to come here. We will get him, and he will stay with us on those top of the conics. And when your family arrives here, so he will point it to us who they are, then we will be able to grab them because there was a lot big crowded. And so we were in that process.
What gate were they at?
The Abbey, where that attack happened.
Okay.
And so my brother called me. Well, he was there. He said that there's a lot of people because I think he was stuck on the Continental Wire. He said that I ripped my leg in my clothes, and my leg is bleeding. So I tell him, I say, just go on the side right now, and wait for the other family members to come join you. He might walk like 10 or 5 minutes away, and then the Lawani messaged me and say, hey, is your family still at the gate? I say, I think so. He said there was a suicide bomber. And that 1 hour to get hold of anybody was the most difficult hour for me again, because I knew that Zubair was already on the gate and the other family was on the way to the airport. I couldn't get hold of anybody at that time because when the Taliban come right away, the internet was not working that good. A lot of phones towers were not in the very good signal. So finally, I got hold of Zubair. I said, "What's going on?" They said, "Well, it looks like there was a something happened by the gate." And I said, "Where you are?" He said, "Well, I was away from it. There was the day that I was, I did a lot of things to God, that things that somebody was watching for us. If not, there will be another catastrophe or tragic event."
And it still wasn't easy for you because now your family was safe from the bombing, but they were stuck in Afghanistan. And they had priority two referrals to the U.S. Refugee Admissions Program. Is that correct, Pasoon?
Yes, they were referred to that too, and also one of the Gunnery Sergeant Buck did a P2 program too, which we applied for that too, but no, nothing come from that either. And after that, so
I see. And at this time, too. Oh, go ahead.
sorry, everybody was in shock. Like even in the Kabul, nobody knew what to do. And also, when my father was a colonel, he suffered a three suicide bomber in 2017, where he shot it himself. So we knew that like there gotta be something, and my dad would be a first target. And so we decided,
Right. Your dad was with the National Directorate of Security.
yes. So
Correct.
we told him
NDS.
that he needs
Yeah.
to leave the house, as soon as possible. That, and then he went to a lot of places. He was on the run for a long time.
During that period, you became responsible for supporting not only your family back in the United States, but also your family in Afghanistan because they weren't able to go out anymore. And so, how were you making that work financially, and what was your system of making sure people were safe?
Well, it was not only my siblings, my brother. I had a uncle that he is still here with in Afghanistan with my family. He was also a driver with my dad. For he was also in the National Director NDS, the National Directorate of Security. So I have to support his family, which he got 6 kids, him and his wife, and I had also 8 mine, and then here. So I start shifting because I was working for Uber. I was working 16 hours, shifted security, and then 2 days. And on the weekend I go to San Francisco, work there for Uber, just to support them, to make sure that at least they will have enough food there. And the problem with them, because they were not in the one spot, so they were separated all over the country. Like it was very difficult for me to catch up with all of them.
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
And then to fast forward a little bit, you actually went back into Afghanistan. Can you tell us what that was like, going back to Afghanistan that was under Taliban rule at the time?
Yeah, because if you see, my dad in the pictures, he was in pretty good shape. But I think after 6-7 months, when I started talking to him, and I think he was in Jalalabad at the time when I talked to him face to face. Well, when I saw him, you can see a different man there. Like it's like two men right now. When one soul, I was like, "What happened to you?" Like you can see his weight. He was way too overweight from it, and then he got a diabetes, blood pressure, and so many other things that he didn't have before. Blood cholesterol, because he was not able to walk. Sitting in one spot. I don't know for how long you can sit in the one room, but it's like you were in the jail. And I was sitting in my work at night, and one of my friends called me. They're like, "Hey, there is a program they call it the family reunification, and you will be not able to get all of them out, but at least your mom and dad." And I was at work there, doing the security shift that night, and I was like, "Okay, you have to make a decision. Like once you go through that airport, you're by your own. There's no embassy, there's no consular service, that you really don't know what you are stepping into." And because the other problem there is nobody knew that I was working with the Americans until I got blown up. So I was already exposed. And if you're going back to again with the American passports on hand, I'm pretty sure you guys saw some of the news. They arrest a couple of people as a spy for the Americans when they were doing the welfare works to provide some of the food to those hungry families. And I was like, well, let's make a decision. I have to lose something. And going into there, it was not an easy task. Like it's very difficult. Like you really don't know. And the problem with that is because you really don't know which group gonna kidnap you or which group gonna get you, because you really don't know who is who there. Everybody's wearing the clothes in with AK-47. You really don't know who's the police right now. And so pretty much for us, everybody was the enemy.
And I think it's important to say here too, you didn't just go to Afghanistan because you thought, oh, this is, the next best option. You had been trying lots of other methods to get your family back before. Ryan, you had been involved in some of that work, right? To try to get Pasoon's family here without him having to return to the Taliban's Afghanistan. What were those efforts including?
Yeah, so really, Pasoon had been here in the United States, and then with the United States exit, then we had kind of lost touch, right? He had got here to the United States, and I know was doing well, and then I had moved. We lost contact off social media, that kind of thing. But upon exit, he was able to get a hold of me. And, at this point, I'm years out of service, right? And, but they're kind of in the Marine Corps, you always got a guy or you always know somebody that might be able to help. And whether it's cleaning a carburetor or immigration attorney. And thankfully, through a Marine contact who knew an immigration attorney wanted to take this case on and help us out pro bono. So we were very fortunate for that because, I don't know, and many people don't know where to start through the convoluted immigration processes. So we did that. We filed various visas that, cost thousands of dollars that we fundraised for and crowdfunded. And again, graciously, were well supported and able to cover all the filing fees. And then, filed all these visas. This was October of 2021. And here we are, today, a year and a half later, and we still don't have receipts back from USCIS for all of Pasoon's siblings, I don't believe. And so they're just in this, we don't know what's happening. And so that's been very frustrating, I think, for Pasoon, for me, for all involved. But summarily, right? So, I mean, here we are, fast forward October, 6 months goes by in April. And there you have Pasoon, a United States citizen at this point, flying to Kabul, sick of waiting on action of the United States government to help his family, and goes out and gets at least his parents out himself. And so, which I don't, and I shared this with Pasoon, I don't know that was the best idea. And, he did it. And I think that's remarkable. And his success in that regard was remarkable, but certainly there's still, we still have work to do.
Well, and I would love to say that, Pasoon, you're the only person that I've talked to who did that. You're not. There have been multiple American citizens and green card holders who have done the same thing because they were getting no results, staying here and waiting and hoping. But when they went into Afghanistan, they were able to get the State Department to remove them and their family members. But can we talk a little bit about the Afghanistan that you encountered when you entered? I mean, you and I have talked before about you gave the last $300 from your wallet to a neighbor because what were they preparing to do with their daughter? Can you tell us a little bit about that story?
When I went there, like you can see the Kabul city is, like you can be lucky for that the city didn't blown up again. It's a nice city. But if you go to the city and you look through the city, you can see hunger all over the country, young, older. In Afghan culture, for a female to to be bigger on the street, I think it's a shame for everybody. But I saw young women, teachers, they were working with the USIDs and all other organization, and we had this neighbor that we know him from a long time. He used to drive a taxi driver. He has 9 daughters, and the taxi that he had, his owner decided to sell it, so he was jobless, and he tried to sell his daughter that I did not know about it. My mom told me that, hey, our neighbor, he's trying to sell his daughter. I say, excuse me? I thought that she was getting married, or something like that, because Afghan, when the daughter gets married, they to get some money for that, is a culture that buy stuff for the daughter again. I was like, are you joking to me? She's like, no, he is selling his youngest daughter. And I say, why? Because he told me to support the other eight, he have to sacrifice one. I walk up on him, I said, like, promise you were selling it. And he was asking for not that much, $200. And I was like, excuse me? Like, how painful is going to be to selling your child for that less amount of money? And that was the only dollar that I had in cash with me. And I was like, I don't have much, but it's only $300 that might help you out, your family, for maybe, I don't know for how long you can feed those 9 people there, but at least something that you're not going to be selling your daughter to anybody.
It must have been incredibly difficult to be there. And you were stuck there can you remind us all, how long were you having to wait for the Department of State to evacuate you and your parents?
Yeah, I think like almost 12 weeks to 3 months almost.
12 weeks. And you were
because
trying to also get them to
my case
evacuate your
was-
siblings.
Because my case was a little bit different. There was a lot of pressure on it. Lieutenant Captain Ryan was working with his congresswoman. I know another Marine that his uncle is a state representative in Oklahoma, Chris Need. He was on the State Department under care. And there was another senator that I do not remember his exact name, but he was on them too. So there, my case was because I know people that stuck there for 6 months.
Yes, you were the quickest of the people that I have spoken with to
Yes.
get out, but still 12 weeks is 12 weeks of waiting for the Taliban to show up at the house or someone to let it slip that you were there. You were never able to get them to. Oh yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, and that was also, as soon as we depart from there next week, I'm pretty sure I sent you the pictures. They come and search our house.
Wow.
That was. I don't remember hearing about that before. I
think
that's
I did
very frightening.
and
And your escape to the airport too.
yes.
Can you tell us how you had to escape to the airport? You couldn't take main roads because of all the Taliban checkpoints.
That was the first when I went there from Kabul, that was good. But after that, our family members tell us, one of them told me, basically said, like, you need to get out of here, even if you're not able to get your family out of here, you need to get out of here. And I was like, what's going on? I said, like, well, nobody will be able to take your responsibility in Afghanistan. So that's where we started using not the main road, but you can go anywhere. They had checkpoints all over the place. And then my dad know a lot of places because he was there in the Kabul for a long time, and he know a lot of dirt road to come around it.
So you were racing down those dirt roads, and I think you said that at one point they were shooting at your car.
Yes,
the Talibs who saw you.
The same uncle that I saw, he was driving the car, and we didn't stop it to them. So they shot at us. It was like, what's going on in the back? He said, like, well, they're shooting at us. I was like, what do they want? He said, like, well, what are you doing in this dirt road here? Because we were coming from Jalalabad to Kabul to get a marriage certificate from my mom and dad, because State Department requires that to get that. And after the Kabul collapse, because you cannot make anything in Kabul, you have to go where you're from or what district you were born, so you have to go there.
I see. And it was really hard, I remember, for your mother in particular, because she was told she had to leave all of her children in Afghanistan. And you have how many siblings who are now stuck in Afghanistan?
I got three brothers and 6 of them right now.
6 of them. And what was it like for your mother to leave them behind?
First, they were not, ready to leave that. Even my dad, because my youngest one, he never been away from the dad. Most of the time he was with him. Even sometimes he will go with him into his office. A lot of time. But when I received an email from the department that said that you cannot take any of your sibling with you, you will be only take your mom and dad. They were not really ready to go. So I got a hold of our attorney that she was helping us. Name is Wiki. I emailed her and say, "Hey, ma'am, this is what's happening right now, and I really don't know what to do. If I'm here and I'm going back with nobody, so there's no point." So she told me the best thing you can do is convince your mom and dad. Once they get here, we will be able to get your two youngest one, if not the other one. So I convinced both my mom and dad and tell them that if you guys go there, at least I will be able to get these two out of here. No, the one that they're not 18 yet, and that was a very difficult time for them to leaving because leaving from home to the airport. My youngest brother was with us. He was escorting us and he was crying all day, until we departed from there. He was on the FaceTime with my mom the whole time, and he still calls. And when I talk to my brother there, sometimes he will wake up at night, talking to himself. So I've been giving him hope that I will get you out of there one day, but I don't know when. But I will definitely get you out of there.
Have you been able to? I know that some Afghans who are in the US have been able to petition for sibling visas, but that there's a 7-year wait for those sibling visas. Have you been able to make those petitions yet
No,
for your siblings?
not yet. I really don't know about the process, but I'm still asking people how that works.
Sure. And 7 years is a really long time to have to wait too. And I mean, Brian, I'm sure that you probably applied the applications that you guys made were probably humanitarian parole applications, I'm going to guess, for your siblings, Pasoon. And those obviously they seem like they're in limbo.
Yeah, I mean,
Completely.
there's really no update. There's been silence from USCIS, and we've struggled to really find, and maybe they're out there, I don't know, but who are those representatives or senators in Congress that are really championing this issue? And I don't. I mean, we'll have people check with USCIS and get status updates, but the status is regularly no update. So.
It's infuriating because we watched how quickly there was a drive to get USCIS to issue humanitarian parole to Ukrainians fleeing Ukraine. But I think that there have been multiple tens of thousands of Afghan applicants for humanitarian parole, and I believe it's something like 4,000 of them have been accepted. Or who have been processed, and it's several hundred have been accepted. It's an infuriating system right now. So, Pasoon, unfortunately, the drama and the saga of leaving Afghanistan didn't stop with getting your parents out. They were taken to Qatar, where they were told they would have 2 months of processing before they could return to the U.S. Is that accurate? Is that what the timeline was supposed to be?
When I talked to somebody called from the State Department, he was an Afghan interpreter. When I talked to him, he said, make sure that you have a medication for your mom and dad because they were diabetics for 1 month, and I was like, he said that, it might be a month or 2 months, not more than that, but make sure you have the medication for at least a month for them. I got them everything, but it took 8 months.
What was that like for them being stuck there for that long of a period?
When I was talking to them, especially my mom was not saying anything, because she was already mad on what happened leaving the siblings. But my dad told me one day that I will go to the army where there was a couple army people sitting in there. That I will tell them, if you guys cannot send me to the America, please send me back to the Afghanistan. I'm happy to go back there, because the thing that they were frustrating them, and personally when I was there, for 1 week in Qatar, I met a lot of people that there was like almost 6,000 people, waiting to be evacuated to the United States. There was an SIV, and a lot of people are those people that call them the family unification, that they reunited the family members with those kids that they left in the evacuation with no family. And I talked to a lot of them, like say most of them. Those are the people that had nothing to do with the Afghan government or with the U.S. government. They are because his son lifted with his uncle or cousin. Somebody comes in, and now they are reuniting them, which they are facing no threats. Like nothing can happen to them even if they stay there because they did not take part in any government, not either working with the Afghan government or with the U.S. Army. No. And then I know a lot of people that contact us, the interpreters that they worked there for 7, 8 years, they're still stuck there. And when my father was there, he went to the because when my father was in there, they make him a representative for his block that they were living in there. There was a huge blocks there. And my dad said that I told one of the army general there that you guys having a problem with the people that they have the legal documents. You guys don't have any problem with those that they have nothing. They comes here to stay for 2 weeks and then they go to the United States. Like what's going on? Like my dad was ready to go back to Afghanistan if he stayed there.
That really says something about the frustration, and there have been not enough stories that have come out about the frustrations of Afghans who are stuck in that kind of limbo right now, not knowing
Yes.
anything about what their future might hold.
Yeah, there's a ton of people in Pakistan that are going through the same thing.
Yeah,
right?
the
P1
state
and P2s.
secretary.
Well, but they haven't even made it.
No,
Yeah,
to Qatar
right.
yet. The state secretary come into Qatar, and when I check in their Facebook page and also the Twitter, they said that he met the Afghan, and I was like, where? He just drove on the roads and just went back. Like, who did he meet with? It's like didn't see anybody meeting any Afghan there.
It's so frustrating. Well, now your parents have arrived, but you're still supporting everyone who's there with you right now and your family back in Afghanistan. Is that still true?
Yes, man. So it's like more responsibility now. Because both of them are sick. You have to get them to the hospital on time, make sure they get their medication on time. Like sometimes, like today, I only sleep for 2 hours. That is my best sleep for the day today.
And so when you and I first started talking, Pasoon, over a year ago, you had said that you had just had to leave college because you weren't able to balance mentally trying to work 18 and 20-hour shifts and then drive for Uber and take care of all of your family. And you still haven't been able to return to college. Is that
No,
still
man.
true?
Yes, I did not. I was just thinking if I can take any summer classes today again, but when I look into my schedule, you know, that's very tight schedule. Like I cannot do that. Even if I wanted to, I really love to go back. And be in the school, but like mentally not ready for that. Sometimes trust me, man. Like I'm sitting here and mentally I'm not here. Because I have to worry about so many things.
I can only imagine how difficult that is when you've given so much. And this has personally, we've talked to so many people who've been personally impacted by our withdrawal and by our 20 years of war. But I think that your story might be just the most, it just shows. And there are so many Afghan families who are here, who are supporting people back home, who are very much impacted by the results of what we did leaving Afghanistan in such chaos at H. Kaya. Ryan, what are your thoughts on what's been unfolding with Pasoon and his family in the aftermath of the withdrawal?
Frustration. And I think in the United States Armed Forces, right, we've fully recognized and come to recognize that the service and sacrifice in military service is a family endeavor, right? It's not an individual endeavor. It's children are part of those service and sacrifice. Spouses are part of those service and sacrifice. Parents, siblings, all of these things. Everybody makes some type of sacrifice. And we ensure those individuals are taken care of, resources are available, et cetera, et cetera. And here we have a case of an individual who, again, earlier in the podcast, I would argue has done more for American interests in his short lifespan, certainly in the, the first 20 plus years of his life, than most Americans do in a lifetime. And we have, for lack of a better word, we've abandoned his siblings in Afghanistan. I hope that changes, and I'm cautiously optimistic we'll get there. How long, I don't know. And here he is working 16-hour security shifts, followed by Uber shifts on the weekend, followed by other jobs to feed his family. And had fate have him born in another country, and he could lift up his shirt and show you the, don't do that, Pasoon, but show you the scars of service and sacrifice, he would be receiving paychecks every month and have incredible benefits and resources available to him. But sadly, because he was not, he doesn't, though he served the same government and stood alongside Americans that have been there for 2 decades, like many of his peers in Afghanistan. And we left them behind. And so that's really frustrating to me. I'm a patriot and I love the United States, but I think, it's our role as American citizens, when our government fails us, to how do we advocate and try to right the waters and make sure that, we don't stop talking about it, and we don't stop trying to keep the commitment we made to those Afghans that served alongside us, whether in uniform or as linguists. So,
very well said.
Absolutely. You put it better than I could have ever done. Pasoon, I'd like to give you the final word. How is your family doing now? And, what are you all looking forward to or concerned about in the immediate future?
Really don't know what to do, because like you were kind of sitting in the dark, especially when it comes to the Afghan side. My sisters, they cannot go to school. They graduated the high school, but they will be not able to continue their higher educations. Same thing with the brothers. Even the one of the things that it's kind of stupid that they do there. One of my brother, he was going to the Afghan American University, and one day I saw on the TV. I'm pretty sure most of you guys seen it, that whoever went to school with the Afghan American University, they were the spies for the United States, and they should be targeted too. And you're like, really, like you're just going to school there. And I'm mostly concerned about him very much too, that, hopefully he never end up in those kind of situations, but it is a lot of frustration still.
We can completely understand that. And, Pasoon and Ryan, we are so honored that you joined us today to talk about these important stories. And, your selfless service to those in need is a real credit to our nation. And we just can't thank you enough for being here.